Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the ESL UK Premiership. My name is Munchables, and joining me once more is Will Frozen Dawn Burgess. And we're ready to sink our teeth into the second game in this best of three. And you know, the first game, pretty back and forth, I've got to say. Well, at least nearly.
Yeah, I think both teams sort of skirmished similarly. The only difference was that Rifty really managed to get a gold lead compared to everyone else, on the map, basically. So, I think if Perilous do, alter themselves a little bit, work around that, there's certainly potential for them to be able to take this game. Especially if Last Remedy gets a little bit overconfident. The players have been around a long time, and sometimes you just get a little bit sort of distracted by the fact that you're sort of winning, and perhaps in their eyes kind of easily or whatever. So I'm imagining there is a possibility that Perilous do in fact take this game.
All right, well, let's just quickly, before we jump into the match, remember you guys can get involved on social media and let us know what you think the highlights of these games are. We're interested in your opinions, and let us know using that hashtag ESL Prem. That's how you can find us on Twitter, and we are also on Facebook and YouTube. All the VODs will be uploaded onto YouTube, so if you've missed any of the games tonight, you can check them out there. But don't forget as well, finals have already been announced. They're going to be at Comic-Con this year on the 28th to the 30th of October. And you can grab your tickets at mcmcomiccon.com/London. That is a tongue twister in itself, but luckily you guys only have to type it. So head over there to meet us at Comic-Con. But enough about that stuff. Let's head into this matchup because, again, Last Remedy versus Perilous Void. And we were kind of talking before the break about how this was a lot to do with the top lane.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly true. I think Rifty, as I've sort of, said throughout, that he just plays so aggressively, and it is just very predictable. I mean, he would just always go for these trades on you, and if you can work around it, if you can have your jungler there, maybe you have a TP mid that comes up as well, all of those kind of things do just come together. So if you can handle Rifty in that sense, and you can sort of give Artorias a bit of a break there, it's certainly possible that you can get yourself a very big lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you just saw on your screens there, 50-50 once more. So any kind of lead that Perilous had before has been nullified by that Last Remedy win. So very, very close vote between these two teams. And we're going to be jumping into Champion Select for the second game in this series. We'll soon find out whether Perilous Void are going to be able to find their way back into this series, or whether they're going to be locked into that lower bracket, just like their counterparts GLB earlier today, who lost 0-2. And Last Remedy, they're going to be looking for a similar situation. But looking at the bans right now, similar to what we saw last game.
Yeah, I'm expecting a similar kind of draft from both these guys. I just want to mention, alert the viewers to the fact that the PV and LR are actually the wrong ways around. So it is actually Last Remedy on blue side and Perilous on the red side. But just a friendly reminder. But I'm expecting a similar kind of draft. I mean, there might be some sort of particular counterbans, target bans, such as the Fiora, which I was going to mention. I still think Echo ban would make a lot of sense. Banning out of Vladimir as well is quite interesting. Org. Thanks for realising.
Yeah, but either way, we are going to have Vladimir and Fiora banned out as well. So two of the huge factors in that last game. Obviously, it was Vladimir in the hands of Brad, and he had some decent play coming out. I feel like had they been in a better position in terms of general gold, they would have been doing pretty damn well with that Vladimir, because multiple times he was flashing forward to grab kills, and obviously the Fiora in the hands of Rifty was just simply terrifying.
Oh yeah, I mean, you give him a champion that's designed to duel, that scales well and can split push, and it's going to be a disaster. But there are tons of champions that are kind of like that. I mean, Shen, arguably, Echo, Fiora, of course, Gnar. So top lane right now is very much in Rifty's favour for the meta, which is pretty, I think, scary for a lot of the teams in the Premiership.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sona being hovered right now. We'll see whether that's going to be locked in or not. But I'm definitely curious to see how much variation we have coming out from these two teams. Obviously, there's a few champions now that we're expected to see in just about every game. Obviously, every season has a few metas to it. But I'm curious to see what flexibility these two squads have, whether they're going to bring in some pocket picks, whether they're going to bring in something a little out of the ordinary.
I mean, maybe, but I just don't. I feel like if they are going to, it's Perilous that's going to be doing it, because Last Remedy kind of doesn't feel like they need to, considering that they're already they won the last game and already feeling pretty confident here, but we do see actually Rise.
Yeah, so this was banned last game as well. This was the first ban of the game coming out from Perilous, I believe. And this time it's going to be Rifty on it. So maybe this is a bit of insider knowledge. Maybe this is a matter of Perilous knowing that this is a hero that one of the Last Remedy guys wants to go on, and banning that in advance. But this time it's going to go through, and that first pick on the blue side is going to grab the mage himself. And I'm curious to see what other options are available. Like, I mean, where do you predict this Rise is going to go, and what is the answer to that coming out from Perilous? Or what would you expect?
Rise will go mid. I can't imagine Rifty playing Rise at all. And such, early picking a mid laner so early, it does allow things like counter picks, but Rise is one of those sort of champions that is so strong, and if you're that comfortable enough to first pick it, then obviously you're comfortable into its counters. Yeah, precisely. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Perilous Void have locked in a couple of their characters as well. 2 AD carries coming on through. 1 for Chris is in the form of Ezreal. And then we've got Sankos on that Graves once more. He did a fantastic job in the last game on that Graves. He was managing to go pretty much toe-to-toe with Broxah for a while. Obviously, they fell behind, and at that point you're going to struggle. But I don't feel like it was. I don't feel like he did a particularly bad job himself. But we are going to have that same matchup: Elise versus Graves, and it's going to be Broxah on that Elise once more. And now they seem to be. Oh, I was about to say they seem to be looking at support positions. They hovered a Janna, they hovered a Thresh, but
they're
locking a Varus just to
AP support Varus. Please no.
I believe. I would expect that to go the way off Toaster though. Obviously, with that Rise already locked in, but Toaster, in previous metas, has played a lot of Varus. Toaster typically loves these tier AD carries, and he will. He's a bit of a sniper when it comes to those piercing arrows, so I'm excited to see what he can pull off this time.
Sure. I mean, that's definitely fair enough. It is just strange that they're committing to the Varus so early on, especially when like Lucian and Jhin are kind of available, but they obviously have a sort of a certain plan in mind, maybe like a particularly scary bot lane. I can imagine like maybe Soraka Varus is pretty terrifying. So we could see something like that coming out from the side of Last Remedy.
Well, it's going to be a Malzahar locked in from Brad, which, first one we've seen of this season of the Premiership. First time we've seen him since that rework. So a slightly different hero, not crazy different though. It's still a similar playstyle. At least you've still got that kind of game-changing ultimate that is the centerpiece to his kit. I
think as well, Malz is a relatively good pick into the Rise, just because you can push waves quite easily, and then in a duel, you can sort of straight up 100-0 him, which sort of prevents him being able to do his full combo. But, I mean, that being said, of course, we are assuming that it is, the Rise mid, but I still think that's like a fair assumption. It's possible that Rise is top and that Varus is mid, but I just don't think that's likely at all. I think the Malzahar into the Rise mid, is definitely what we're going for here.
Well, Nutri looking towards that Trundle once more, potentially. I mean, we saw him play it in the last game. It's something I've seen him play in the past as well, but Echo going to be locked in, so this is the point where we fully expect now Echo to go to that top lane. It's going to be Zoran playing the Rise in the mid lane, and then obviously the Varus going into that AD carry position. But now, the final pick available for Perilous Void. What do you expect to come in to round out this composition now?
Well, the issue here is that I want to just say sort of Kled, just because I think that's what Artorias felt really comfortable playing, despite the fact that he kind of got destroyed by Fiora. But I mean, essentially a lot of the good top laners have been banned out here, and he kind of needs a champion that can at least in some way handle and duel the Echo. And Shen is obviously very good at dueling Echo, banned away, Gnar as well. But yeah, the Kled makes perfect sense here. I mean, obviously, very much a comfort pick for Artorias. And, he did have some very good ultimates. A lot of players that I've spoken to really dislike Kled for the sort of randomness of his ult, in that he doesn't, lock on very easily at the end. But, he had some successful ults, I think. And considering that his team does need to sort of be, getting in there, makes a lot of sense to pick up that champion in this draft here.
I think a lot of the logic behind picking Kled in the top lane, in certain scenarios at least, can be kind of freeing up that AD carry position, so you don't have to pick the Sivir for that boost. You don't have to have that support AD carry in the same way, and it opens up hyper carries basically, like Ezreal. If you can get towards that late game with a Malzahar and an Ezreal scaling incredibly well and then get to that late game to force the engage with the charge. That's a recipe for success in my eyes, and we'll see whether that kind of strategy is going to be coming out from the Perilous boys here. But over on the other side, we've got Last Remedy. So with these two compositions rounded out now, how do you expect this game to be panning out across the next few minutes?
Well, the thing is that, again, Elise applies more pressure than Graves does, like objectively at least. But we have seen from Sankus him being able to apply more pressure in the early game than the Elise, at least in the last game he did. So, truthfully, again, it's almost tough to call. The only thing is, I think Last Remedy just showed their prowess on their champions, or just overall sort of individually more skilled. And this alone is enough to very often win you a game. The only thing is, as I sort of touched on, that overconfidence can get to you, and Perilous did show some sort of, bite back, essentially. The only thing is that I think if Last Remedy does get ahead, they have like loads of tools to snowball. Rise being able to reposition an entire team is pretty terrifying. Varus, of course, being a poke champion, poke comps, or poke champions in general, when they get ahead, is scary. Rifty, again, being able to split push in this top lane is going to be something that's quite difficult to deal with. But on the same token, if Perilous gets themselves ahead, then they also have a lot of tools to help them close out this game. I mean, Kled has the engage. You have sort of Ezreal, who obviously, as we know, scales very well. Same for Graves, same for Mal. So I really, again, think this is just going to be a case of who wins the mid-game team fights, and essentially what sets that up is who wins the early game by getting the first tower, first bloods, things like that.
Okay, well, we'll see who is going to be able to get that advantage. And I think one of the things to talk about here as well is the fact that we have two very late game oriented AD carries right now. This bottom lane, obviously you've got Toaster on Varus. That's a very poke-oriented lane, and you can put down a lot of pressure. But he's against a Braum. That Unbreakable will really be a bit of a thorn in Toaster's side. So I'm curious to see how that lane pans out. I can't say Ezreal versus Varus is a matchup that I'm overly familiar with, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, same here to an extent. I think that the Braum can do a lot of work to pressure the Varus out, and to be able to defend the Ezreal, who, in a sense, has more range than the Varus, but then Varus is going to essentially outrange him with a max fully charged Q, but in an actual duel, Ezreal can just keep chipping away. A lot of it is going to come down to sort of the skill matchup in that situation, but Toaster and Nutri from the last game showed a certain, I guess, it just simply showed that they are more skilled in that previous game than Kriz and Prosfair, in virtue of course, being able, double killing them in the bottom lane at least once, and I think they picked up another kill at another point as well. So, those kind of things make me think that it might be in Toaster and Nutri's sort of, I guess, in their court to sort of play the lane as they wish.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking a lot to Nutri at Gamescom, and this was obviously before all of the roster shuffling and things happened, but one of the things he was saying was that, ever since he's come back to League of Legends, because he did have that excursion to Overwatch and obviously playing poker as well, he kind of had a bit of time off during the break. Even coming back, he's found that playing this 2 versus 2 meta is something that comes quite naturally to him, and he's had a lot of success winning out in those duels. So I think that's something that will obviously be a big boon to this Last Remedy team.
I mean, it's almost it's somewhat slightly ironic, I guess, that Nutri, who's been played multiple roles competitively, I think jungle, top, and now support, he's, very comfortable with his macro and his game knowledge, and yet he still likes the 2v2 dueling, which is typically, typically people like that love the sort of lane swap meta, because they don't actually have to lane very much. They just have to know the map, know the game. So interesting that he said that to you, really, I think.
Well, I think it was more a matter of, I have been having success more than I absolutely adore this playstyle.
Okay, fair enough.
Regardless, we are about to get onto the map, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, the second we're in, we do have a pause. So I'm assuming this will be a fairly short one, and the players should be back momentarily. At least that's what I'm hoping. But
the dream.
All I've got in terms of information is uno momento, por favor, from one of the players. So, fingers crossed, it will be a very short break. If they've only asked for a single moment, which in my head is maybe around 30 seconds. So,
well, how long is a moment? I mean,
about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Is that your?
That's my analysis of a moment.
Aww.
We'll have to find out if that is going to be the case. And it was maybe about 30 seconds. I wasn't counting, but either way,
yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, we are onto the Rift. Let's get into this second game between Last Remedy and Perilous Void. We'll see if Perilous can actually start the game, get themselves back into the series, is what I was going to say.
Lucky.
Never lucky.
Bit of a BG.
Baby rage.
I'm not exactly sure what the issue is, but Rifty's the only one who hasn't bought items, so he might have disconnected. Would be my guess. Not entirely sure here, but I'm not expecting any super interesting starts or anything from either of the teams, as the lane swap meta is kind of down. You often don't see that many level 1 plays. The only kind, as I mentioned, that you see is the kind where you go in to get the wards to know where the enemy jungler started, so that you don't get ganked on your second buff. But for now, I'm just sort of expecting both teams to defensively line up.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see that kind of standard level 1 start. Apparently, it's just one of the top laners struggling with that internet connection. But I think he's back now, so should be kicking things off once more and getting this game underway. And we'll see whether we are just going to see that defensive start from either side, or whether we see some crazy level 1 action. Obviously, the Braum passive can be a big boon when it comes to level 1 play.
Oh yeah.
But, you know, it's not something that we see all too often.
No, I'm not expecting to see it at all, but I think the big thing to look for in this game is just how the jungler's path. You know, there's a lot of pressure on the Elise to support Rifty in this top lane matchup, considering that, you know, last time he did get solo killed and then got a solo kill and then bounced back and got killed and all of this kind of thing. I feel like I've sort of said it loads, but it's just so important for the junglers to pressure around the top lane so that essentially their top lane isn't the one who falls behind. But even with the pressure from the previous game, Rifty still managed to accrue this CS lead, and you know, the same might happen this game. I wonder if Artorias has kind of gone, oh, okay, I know how this guy plays now. Let's, you know, adapt my playstyle a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, the minions have officially spawned, and we'll see how this one is going to pan out, whether Rifty has adapted his playstyle, whether Artorias is going to go a little bit more defensive for this one. But, you know, he's on that Clyde once more, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him just try and best Rifty this time. Because, you know, one of the things about that lane that we've not really touched on too much is the fact that actually it was incredibly close. On the first 3-4 fights that they had, both of them were down to like 100 HP right towards the end of it. So I feel like maybe Artorias could be in that mindset of, you know, had it just gone a little bit better, I could have easily won that one. Yeah,
very, very often when those tiny little duel, you know, tiny little like differences in the duel, you know, just come down to almost a couple of minion attacks. You can get yourself to the mindset of like, I can beat this guy, I can 100% beat this guy, and that's very good for sort of helping with confidence, you know, other than just being outright smashed in lane. And I think we're going to see, you know, I mean, hopefully from here, Artorias kind of step it up and give Rifty like a real run for his money. But I think we're just going to have to see how it all plays out.
Well, there's only one way to find out. Already a lot of trades going off in this mid lane, and the Voidlings just chasing Zoiran all around the Rift. But Artorias is going fairly aggressive there. Did land his bear trap on a rope, but doesn't want to commit to anything too aggressive right now. And a nice little bit of play coming out from Risk It just to chunk Artorias down, but should be able to regenerate at least some of that HP again.
Yeah, and so both junglers doing the a sort of standard enough start. Rise getting that ward down to make sure he doesn't get a sort of cheeky 2-minute 45 gank, which can often happen. I'm wondering if Sankers is going to go for the level 4 clear or look to try and take it sort of early scuttle to help deny this Elise pressure. Those sort of things can, you know, actually have quite a lot of influence in the laning phase. You know, if you take that scuttle crab, then the Elise, if she then goes for it or would be denied and things like that. But overall, these kind of small differences aren't the big deciding factors in games. They're just little ways to get gold leads. But
yeah. Well, one of the big deciding factors that could be coming into play in this game is that already in that top lane, there's a bit of a CS lead starting to build, and the opposite going on in that mid lane. When I started saying the sentence, it was a much bigger gold CS lead. It was on basically double, but there was a fairly big wave, so Artorias is able to close that gap, and a similar thing should be happening towards the mid lane. But Broxah versus Sankus right now. Jungle versus jungle, and it's going to be Sankus winning out that trade in the end as Broxah going to get a little bit of help from Nutri just to get out. But in the top lane, Artorias is fighting away onto Risk It. He's nearly finished off the kill as well as he flashes forwards, but on a sliver of HP. I guess that is what you call risking it right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely classic of Artorias versus Rifty here. This seems to happen all the time. I mean, 4 minutes into the game, they're already trying to kill each other. Bot lane having a little bit of action there. Nutri actually getting quite chunked.
Trouble does back away in the end, and unfortunately the piercing arrow not going to land. But here we go, Risk It's back in the top lane. Artorias has got Skarl back, but with Risk It on so much HP, he's not going to be able to continue the fight, but at least he survives. I
think Artorias slightly misplayed the lane there. He tried to shove it out so that he could get himself quite a significant CS lead, but instead actually has locked himself in a lane free. So
here we go, Chris is in trouble. Arcane shifts away, and Braum will be able to jump to him, and that's one of the beautiful things about running this lane setup. There is so much potential for escape, and they will be able to do exactly that in the end.
And so we're going to see here, the Rise went for a really early back to lock up his tier as soon as possible. He actually had 17 CS when he went B, but he did have the Mana Crystal. And we're actually going to see something similar, I think, from Kriz here. He should have enough gold if he goes B soon, which I think he's going to need to do with Sankus comes. But actually, top lane, more fun as they just smack onto each other.
Even more skirmishing going on, but Toaster's actually being found here, but Schoolboy B has no mana to work with. Kriz is in trouble. Exhausts go down on either side. The piercing arrow could be enough. He's at 1 HP and he gets it. The piercing arrow comes on through, but Toaster will be dropping in payment for it. Nutri now is going to get locked up, and we'll see if they've got the damage to finish off the troll. He's going to be able to wander away from this one, and in the icy domain he will sprint away underneath his tower.
But Sankus here is going to get himself quite a big CS lead over Broxah, who's, unless he gets this gank off, which he doesn't, he's actually going to swing quite a big difference in this jungle, where the Graves picks up loads of CS in the bottom lane, including a cannon, I believe, although I'm not entirely sure. But that CS difference actually can really sort of turn the jungle tides.
Yeah, well, in the mid lane, we're seeing a bit of a trade going on between these two players. Zoiran going pretty ham, but Brad is going to just nether grasp him and force him out of this fight. The flash does come out from Zoiran, so he will survive. But nice little use of the abilities. Both summoner spells, in fact, out of Zoiran.
Yeah, I mean, with both those summoner spells down at the cost of no summoner spells for the side of PV, I think we're going to see Sankus come back around, because Brad can literally just flash ult, and you've got a massive amount of burst coming out from the grave. So I'm kind of thinking that should happen again. Wanting to look at Broxah and see if he can, lay loads of wards around mid lane to account for it. And it's kind of what we've seen here, as last round he does in fact have 4 pink wards on the map, which is really, really impressive to see, especially as Perilous currently has none.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Artorias doing a much better job up in this top lane this time in terms of CS. He's staying much more even with Rifty, and he's going to be able to joust away from that combat, which isn't a sentence that I would have really expected to be saying, jousting away from something, but Risk It going to be committing to this one, and I think in general trading fairly evenly.
Yeah, so unless unless that procced, but yeah, it's good for Artorias to be even in CS here, because he can't let sort of a repeat of last game happen where he fell super behind. I just want to mention though that the Ezreal has opted into the tier and the then Cull build, which I personally don't like, but considering he's against another tier champion, it's not so bad. But actually, I wonder if Sankus knows Broxah is there from that pink ward. I guess he doesn't feel safe because he doesn't have his mid laner with him.
Don't know what the scenario is going through their mind right now, but Zoiran is going to be able to clear away some of that vision in that jungle, but Artorias has been locked up and he's taken a huge amount of damage. Sankus is here. Collateral damage is available, so Broxah has to be careful. And Artorias will escape, but there's a fight between the mid laners as well. Zoiran getting chunked, and that is going to be the flash nether grasp coming through as well. Zoiran incredibly low, and he's going to be able to dodge away from the skill shots. The dot is ticking, but he's going to be able to survive. Or is he? Brad trying to commit to this one, but I don't know how much he wants to actually go for this right now. Brad has been caught out, way overextended. And a really nice little pincer move coming out from Last Remedy. But here we go, Glacial Fissure goes down. Both exhausts on both AD carries. And then looks out. Look at the damage out of the piercing arrow. Kriz is going to be able to get away with it though and turns it around. Look at that one. PV is getting ahead, and there's a teleport as well to even the fight up. Complete chaos across the entire map.
But teleport and flash there from Rifty just to pick up 1 kill and a bit of CS isn't necessarily that worth it. I mean, he does have a 20 CS lead now, but it's all about how well he can use that. But across the board, a lot of sort of, I guess I would say, unforced errors to an extent, but essentially teams, or, you know, we saw Sankus going a bit too aggressive there with Brad to try and, you know, pick up those, well, the low HP targets such as Zoran. And then we saw obviously Toaster and Nutri getting outplayed in the 2v2, which, you know, is something that I mentioned could happen. You know, Toast kind of has those games where he can do really, really well, but then sometimes he can kind of just derp a little bit. And we have seen that sort of from him more recently. Certainly something you don't expect from an LCS player, but I guess, you know, they're humans just like us.
Just like us. Speak for yourself, mate. I don't know if I would go along with that title.
Human.
But yeah, anyway, top lane CS lead is definitely starting to go the way of Rifty. Artorias falling a little bit behind after some of these skirmishes now, and the kill and assist in the hands of Rifty will certainly be helping towards that gold difference as well, which just in that top lane is starting to get just over 1,000. But here we go, charging the bottom lane. Nutri going to be the target, but Toaster commits way too hard for this attack onto Chris. I think he just realized that there's no way he's escaping that one and tried to do what he could. But this is a good opportunity for potentially Dragon, or potentially to try and force
the first blood
tower, but they can't really commit to it right now.
Well, the thing is, I think that Artorias had to teleport back to top lane to deal with the Rifty push, and Ezreal's sort of tower taking ability isn't that great. So, I mean, with Sankus there maybe, but I think they just didn't want to risk it, to be honest with you. And it's fine, you know, they got themselves some nice kills with an overall good play. Not too much was burnt. And it's one of those things where, you know, you're going to have to just accept your winnings, but sort of call it there as opposed to trying to take more.
Absolutely. And we're going to see, just this top lane has been just nothing but each of them trying to get that extra bit of damage, nothing but battering back and forth between the two of them. But all in all, it has been fairly even in terms of the skirmishes, and Sankus heading up towards this top lane now. Maybe they can make something happen, but the Tri-Brush is warded for both sides, and I think he might just have to go for Krugs and maybe back away.
Zoran just popped Ghost to go into Brad, actually.
Oh,
wow,
here we
very
go.
good flash.
Brad just gets deleted in the mid lane. What on earth was that? Zoran doing so much damage, and then the Venomous Bite from Broxah as well, just annihilating that health bar. And this is actually a lot of damage going down onto this bottom lane tower as well. Toaster and Nutri trying to pressure onto this one. I don't think they'll finish it just yet as Chris has arrived, but that is going to set things up for later on, and they could be looking at a tower first blood. But Toaster, with a nice little pillar from Nutri, should be able to escape from this one. And oh, piercing arrow. Look how much damage that already does.
Yeah, so I mean, just to touch on the Brad play, I feel like actually, you know, never mind, there's a big fight bot lane.
Fight goes on once more. Subjugate onto Chris, and Toaster actually being bullied quite a lot by Prosper right now, and he's done a lot of damage. Schoolboy P might be able to finish off this fight. Toaster flashing away. We need to get these Brawn passives procced. That's going to be the answer, but Prosper's run out of HP. Nutri goes down though, and it is going to be Chris picking up the kill in the end. Another skirmish goes on towards that mid lane jungle. But in the end, it's just going to be Perilous taking a kill. They're only 1,000 gold down this time. This is looking to be a much more even game. Yeah,
and this gold is in this sort of standing outer towers, which neither team looks, you know, overly positive to get. They kind of could flip both ways with regard to which towers could fall next. So very, very close game by 13 minutes here. And, you know, as we sort of said, no real team with any significant lead in any significant role. The kills are generally split across, you know, all the players from both sides here.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to see when this first Drake will be started by either team. Whether it's going to be like a team just trying to abuse a power spike and just forcing it because they know they won't lose anything, or whether it will be off the back of a huge team fight. We'll have to see as the game continues, but this bottom lane tower with Chris heading back to base could be in trouble just from Toaster alone. Yeah,
but notice how Sankus and Prosper are, of course, coming down, knowing that that is precisely what's going to happen. Braum and Graves, of course, you know, going to be able to hold this tower pretty easily. Good wave clear, and in fact, Schoolboy P is staying, which a questionable decision, really.
I've just realised I'm talking about first blood tower. Obviously, that top tower already went down.
Yeah,
so
yeah, sure.
Last Remedy already have that in the bag.
Towers are still important.
Still looking for another tower regardless. Toaster, actually that was one auto attack off. Maybe could have committed to that, but actually 1v1 in the mid lane coming on up here as Brad is actually just getting bullied away here. Doesn't want to commit to anything. And here comes the dive. You're absolutely right. Nether Grasp on to risk it, but he's going to have his Chrono Break available and will be able to escape from this one. Zoiren might not be so lucky though as the rest of the team arrives, and it's going to turn it into a 1-for-1 mid laner for mid laner. But in the meantime, that bottom lane tower did go down, and this wave should be pushed under the tier 2.
So it's interesting that Perilous opted into sacrificing the bottom tower just to be able to try and come up and counter this play. Perhaps they just thought that they would lose that tower anyway, so wanted to get something out of it, but interesting that they should sort of opt that way around. And what I really see from them in the form of adaptation is to get a ward to make sure that Rifty can't do that again, because being able to let the top laner just free roam into mid lane like that really shouldn't happen. As you can see on your screens, the top side, well, so the top red side for the red team has no wards in it at all. And that really shouldn't be happening, but that's what happens when you spend a lot of time in the bottom half of the map.
Won't risk it. Could be in a bit of trouble here. Flashes away. Doesn't have his ultimate available. Chrono Break won't be there. Glacial Fissure falls short. Just a narrow, tiny bit to the side. Mystic Shot. Arcane Barrage?
Yeah, Arcane Barrage. Mystic Shot's the Q.
It comes flying on through regardless. Doesn't connect to its target. Is going to be an unfortunate failure.
Prosper's got to be sad about that. He held on to his exhaust thinking he would have the kill. He missed his Q and his ultimate, which obviously a kill like that is just so useful when the goal difference is so small between the two teams. But holding onto the exhaust, just knowing how valuable it can be, is very often worth it. So sort of respect for that, but obviously missing skill shots is not ideal.
Toaster is getting pounced upon here, or should I say jousted, by Artorias as Kled. Skrull is just going to leg it on out of there. I love that passive so much. I love
weird.
the animations on the mount.
He just legs
it's beautiful. But and I love how he goes to a brush. That's my favourite thing about it. But regardless of the animations, it is going to mean that Artorias has to head back to base on this one. And you know, despite the fact that the gold is much closer in this game, it is going to be Last Remedy that are really starting to take some advantages here, and it definitely feels like they're the ones that are on the driver's seat.
Yeah, so this is what happens when you lose all of your outer towers, or most of your outer towers, at least, you know, you lost the side lane ones, is that you lose a lot of map pressure. So actually finding a way to take an objective is a lot harder because the enemy team just knows your movements better than you know theirs. And it's hard-ish to come back from this position, but what you have to do is sort of make a decisive move across the map, make sure you have vision in your jungle so you don't get exploited, and then look to try and take any of these outer towers that you so desire. But considering that no one in particular is ahead or can split push from Perilous, it's essentially going to be about making a big pick. And they do certainly have the tools to make such a pick, I mean, specifically in Brad's ultimate.
Absolutely, but CS-wise, we're actually starting to see a bit of a lead build up for the side of Last Remedy, and I think that's just down to these players being so experienced. They are starting to pull ahead just a teensy bit, and it's starting to show on that gold gap. But that is going to be a Mountain Drake going the way of Perilous Void, so they've got something to work with at least, but they're losing a lot of pressure on that top tower, and the Rift Herald, I believe, as well, is going to be taken away for the side of Last Remedy. So it's going to be a fairly even trade. Charge going to come on through, though. They're looking for the team fight, and Toaster is going to get Nether Grasp. He's going to be knocked up, and he's going to be knocked on out. His Prosper is going to be the target. Chrono Break comes on through, does a lot of AoE, but it's a double kill for Chris, and he's looking for Broxer as well. Should be able to find this one, and this is looking fantastic for the Ezreal player. Brad is going to be the target as well from the enemy team, but in the end, it's going to be a kill for Artorias and a fantastic team fight for Perilous Void.
3-1 team fight for Perilous. I mean, I was going to say that I think they should just sacrifice the Herald and just target down the mid tower and maybe even try and pressure second tier, but obviously, you know, knew they could take this team fight. Really impressive stuff and fantastic use of the Kled ultimate. A lot of people have kind of dissed it for being unreliable, but when you use it in a situation like that and you kind of know you'll get a target, really fantastic to see. And Nutri's Pillar, you know, tried, of course, to deny the engage, but overall, a 3-1-5 for Perilous and taking that tower. Only, what, 1,000 gold difference now, and a lot of that is still locked up in the outer top and bottom towers.
Yeah, absolutely. If Perilous can start to capitalize on those global objectives, then they should be able to get themselves well and truly back into this game. The tiers on both sides are going to be stacking up at this stage as well. 620 stacks for Chris up against just 316 stacks for Toaster. Obviously, Varus will be much slower at stacking
just
that
flashed
as
to combo scoreboard.
well. I think he did, and Chris might just be dead for it, but there's a nice minion wave to hide behind. It's not going to be enough, though, and Sankas will flash forwards to try and punish this. Wait for the shield to go before the collateral damage. It's on cooldown. There it goes. Comes off cooldown at just the right moment, and he will finish off the kill.
So, I mean, that was Zoran flashing for Sankas' flash there, but, of course, an assisted kill over for the side of Perilous actually gives them the gold advantage from that particular play. And Broxide so caught out here. I mean, yeah, I can't imagine him getting out of here unless Nutri's pillar is perfect.
Well, they do manage to get him to somewhat safety, but the dot will finish him off in the end. Prosper should be able to jump to his teammates, but the AoE damage coming out from the Varus is just simply terrifying already, and this is the point. I was just saying how he's not even finished stacking his tier. He's not even turned it into a mana moon, but doesn't seem to matter for him as he's still going to be able to chunk them down.
And so, I mean, yeah, this is one of the most annoying things about Varus is that even when he's 1-4, his Q is just such a potent ability that it can have all sorts of, pressure in that regard. And the way to handle poke in general is to make sure that you are set up before they are. So in any given situation, you're there first so that they can't exploit you as you try and get vision by being able to poke you down really heavily. But so far, we've seen Perilous actually make some very decisive calls, and this is important into a comp like Last Remedies that can move very nicely across the map, that has these sort of poke elements to them. And, with the gold difference so close at 20 minutes, which is not necessarily what Last Remedy would have expected considering the nature of last game, I think Perilous certainly have a foot in the door here and still have a nice scaling comp as well. They're not hard out split pushed by the likes of a Fiora this time, and there isn't sort of a double, well, technically there is a double tier comp, but at the same time Mal scales very nicely late game anyway, that I honestly think Perilous, if they keep playing like they are this proactively, manage to get themselves some of these outer towers, there's a lot of potential for them to really bring this game home.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that analysis, to be quite honest. This is looking like maybe Perilous would be able to get themselves onto the scoreboard and tie up this series, and in the eyes of Last Remedy, that should be a pretty bad thing. They've got some big powerhouse players on this squad. This is one of those lineups that at the start of the season you kind of look at and you say, maybe this is going to be one of the ones that we see at finals. Maybe this is one of our favourites for the whole season. But right now, Perilous are giving them a run for their money. And I want to see this go to the full 3 games. We'll wait and see, though, if Perilous are going to be able to make that happen. It's not going to be the easiest task for them. But there's only one way to find out if they will be able to do so. Unfortunately, I believe this pause will be continuing for just a little bit on this one. We'll be able to get back into the game. I'm trying to find out what the issue is. I believe one of the players is struggling with a bit of lag. So
that happens.
Yeah, it does happen. I'd rather that we pause it than we have an unfair result from the game.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so, I mean, looking at the rest of this game then, what is it that Perilous have to kind of pull out of the bag to one-up Last Remedy?
I think they just need to essentially keep their cool. I know it sounds sort of like one of those dumb things, but essentially what they need to do is continue doing what they're doing. Make these decisive, aggressive plays, the kind of like the engage onto the Rift Herald, and trust in yourselves, trust in the team that you can pull those kind of things off. Because, when you're playing up against some of the big names in sort of UK scene, it can be a bit nerve-wracking, but obviously just having the confidence in yourself to be able to make those plays and, constantly be focused on objectives, make sure the wards are getting down appropriately, those kind of, almost like the fundamentals, because essentially this game is just going to be about who makes the most mistakes, or rather, the team that makes the next big mistake will be the one who loses, a significant objective. I mean, Baron hasn't just spawned yet. I think it's about 30 seconds off. But it's still these outer towers that allow you to accumulate the big gold leads, which snowball, of course, into more and more gold leads.
Absolutely. Well, it's certainly feeling like across the board, Perilous Void, in terms of carries, in terms of where the gold is on their squad, is actually doing a really, really good job. When I look across the entire scoreboard at where the gold lies, where the kills lie as well, generally speaking, the carries are doing pretty damn well. It's going to be Chris that's got the biggest gold lead for them. He's 600 gold ahead of Toaster, which, kind of shows how much gold is invested in towers these days and how much is in that CS. The CS lead is still in favor of Last Remedy, and as well that tower advantage going their way just by one tower, but it makes the difference.
The really interesting thing from a mentality point of view, though, is that very rarely do you actually see that kind of gold difference. I mean, a lot of players don't truly know the value of like CS to kill ratio. So you see your Ezreal as 4-3-5. I'm just looking across at the screen. And then you see their Varus at 1-4-1, and you're like, okay, we are so ahead with regard to the marksman. So those kind of things can really sometimes fill you with confidence, but then sometimes also sort of bring you back. It's gonna have the multiple effects on different people. You know, sometimes you think you're really behind, but actually the gold's even, or sometimes you're ahead in kills, but not actually ahead in gold, and then you get overconfident and think. But I mean, a lot of it actually just comes down to sort of how well you play and the items you have. But essentially, that kind of thing, I think, from Perilous' point of view, you know, they've got to be confident. I mean, they're 7-11 up. 2 of their players have yet to die. Sure, the Malzahar is kind of having a little bit of a BG with 1-3, but I mean, you know, the Ezreal's ahead, so as a team, they've got to be feeling confident, and I think it could really, you know, invigorate them through this pause.
Yeah, and I think one thing to bear in mind as well is Artorias is ahead this time. He's on 2-0-3. He's already got his Titanic Hydra, so he's feeling to be in a pretty good spot, and his charges have been on point this game. So maybe this is going to be one of those games where Artorias just goes off and starts to kind of hard carry the team. And, you know, when you've got the likes of an Ezreal on the squad as well, if you can maintain this lead and just hold on to it, you're going to be looking fantastic in the late game. Yeah,
I mean, I'm loving how Artorias is playing so far. I mean, his ults are so kind of, I don't want to say reckless, because obviously he plans them, but it's just crazy that he kind of ults from so far out. Really seems to know Kled very well, and as a team, you know, I sort of checked out their previous games. They played a lot of ranked 5s with Kled as well. Like, obviously the team likes playing around it. I mean, I'm not sure if it's the sort of thing worth banning, for example, if we were to get into a game 3. But it's certainly something that Artorias is just playing very, very well, and the only player in the UK scene that I know sort of successfully to be able to play a Kled so far, which is obviously, you know, great to see this kind of adaptation in the meta.
Yeah, and I mean, an accolade to be had as well for him. So good job by him, but the pause has been ended. The game has been resumed. We are back onto Summoner's Rift. And we'll see whether Perilous are going to be able to keep it up, keep on being aggressive and making these skirmishes happen, or whether it's going to be the Last Remedy show here, and whether we're going to have a 2-0 or a 1-1 on our hands.
So I think a lot of it, just as I mentioned, sort of depends on whether or not Perilous are going to be able to keep their cool in this, you know, maintain basically essentially what they've been doing so far. But you know, Last Remedy of course has been playing around the map pretty well, obviously, you know, getting themselves well, at least one more tower than Perilous, and from last game as well, played well around the objective. So all in all, a very, very close game in this, you know, in this series, which is fantastic to see. I'm still, you know, personally, I'm just hoping for a third game because, you know, well, why wouldn't I? I mean,
I feel like we got robbed of a game earlier, so I feel like we deserve an extra game now.
Exactly.
We'll have to wait and see.
I deserve more time at the ESL studios.
But looks like both teams are starting to head towards this bottom half of the map right now, and maybe looking to fight for an objective. But Dragon isn't going to be up for quite a while. One of those bottom towers is already gone. So it's going to have to be Perilous that makes something happen here, because, I mean, realistically, there's no reason for Last Remedy to actually force an engage. I nearly said Last Renegades.
Oh, triggered. I'm triggered from last time.
TILT.
So sad. I mean, I think a lot of it as well comes down to the fact that Last Remedy can use Rifty to just shove waves so easily on Echo. I mean, Champion can literally just walk up, queue a wave twice, and then leave, and everything's, you know, Gucci, which is very difficult and annoying to deal with. But so long as you work around the map pretty well, it's fine. I mean, that being said, of course, we actually see Zoro getting some free damage on this tower, which should have been telegraphed a bit by Perilous. You know, I think they should have seen this coming somewhat, just to deny, because little chips of damage like that are what actually eventually lead into towers if there's not any massive team fights going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like it's Last Remedy that have got their foot on the pedal right now, starting to pressure in this bottom half of the map and just kind of gaining control of whatever they can. A nice couple of deep wards over towards that top half as well for them, so they know for a fact that Rifty is going to be safe for a fair while, but Artorias is going to be able to hold off on that split push. And the same thing in the bottom lane, Malzahar versus Rise. It should be fairly easy for Brad to just be able to clear those waves.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking as well, both these mid laners can't really kill each other without any assistance from anyone else. But both junglers can apply a lot of assistance, of course, to Graves, being able to provide a massive mana burst on top of the Malzahar ult, but then Broxah, of course, provide the CC and similar damage with the AP build that he's going. Both mid laners just have to be careful while split pushing here. And we do see... Ooh, I thought Rifty was going to go for another one of those dives in the mid lane, but it turns out he just wanted to throw in his...
I think it's a little bit riskier when four players are there
well,
instead of...
I wouldn't put it past Rifty, though. That's the only thing.
Either. I would not either. But the top tower in a little bit of jeopardy right now. Rifty going to go for a chrono break very early in that fight, actually. Doing a bit of damage to Artorias. But the charge comes through. It's not going to be enough CC to keep the tower alive. He does sacrifice his own life. But for a top lane tier 2, potentially worth it.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Chris's ult there just a little bit sooner. I think Artorias could have communicated that a bit better just to let him know that's what was going on. But at the same time, Rifty trading his life for a tower, perfectly fine trade, so long as whilst you are dead in this sort of 25-second period before he's back up with TP, they don't lose anything else. And Dragon is contestable, but it looks like Perilous not going to be able to make anything from this. And well played, of course, from Rifty to be able to trade his life with that in mind. But as I say this, actually... Perilous might be trying to start off this dragon and kill it before Rifty spawns. I'm not sure there's any deep wards though that he could TP to, so...
To be honest as well, with it being a cloud drake, I don't know whether it would have been worth committing too much to try and contest that one. They are going to be able to walk away with it. And that's going to be another notch in the belt of Perilous Void, but still the gold lead ever so slightly in favour of Last Remedy. And I feel like this is just a matter of Perilous Void searching for ways to counter Last Remedy right now. It feels like these last few minutes have been Perilous trying to get a grip on this game, and it feels like, I don't know, it's just slipping away from them. And Last Remedy, they've still been the ones in control despite the gold being just about even.
Yeah, I think Last Remedy is playing the map a bit better. You know, they do have 2 more towers than Perilous, but Perilous does have 2 more dragons, so if this does go late enough, it's kind of going to even itself out a little bit. But for now, if Rifty is constantly allowed to just split push, take towers, apply pressure in that way, it's going to be pretty difficult for Perilous to sort of maintain a grip on this game. It does seem as well that the 1-3-1 strategy from Last Remedy is coming out here with the Rise, of course, in the top lane. Artorias actually going dangerously low, but Rifty not wanting to dive him, at this point at least, which is something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you've achieved something when Rifty isn't wanting to dive at the time, but Rifty is going to be able to punish by taking that tier 2 tower. So even with the Titanic Hydra, that extra wave clear on the side of Artorias, unfortunately, it's not enough to hold on to the towers in this 1v1 scenario, and he's just not had the support of his team. They've been here trying to hold off against the bombardment coming across from Toaster. Oh, risk it though, coming in from the side. Doesn't actually find a way to engage the fight, but there's a lot of pressure coming out onto this tower, and it should be able to secure them. This objective, the fight, should kick off here, though. Glacial Fissure comes down, and Broxah has to try and escape from this one. Sankuz is going to be the first one to drop. That goes the way of Toaster, and Prosper flashing away will not escape with his life. And now Chris has found himself in a terrible position. Will be able to get away, though, as Zoiran goes a little bit under tower, but escapes with his life. Also, Last Remedy managing to win that team fight pretty handedly.
So Last Remedy here playing, essentially just playing the tower game far better than Perilous is. Even then, like, they take the tower and then initiate a team fight that they win, which is one of those things that sort of shouldn't happen, but they're just playing their comp better at this moment and relying very heavily on Rifty as well with the split push to be take all of these towers. I think Rifty himself has sort of taken 3 towers, I think, the one in the bottom lane and then 2 in the top. So right now, Last Remedy is just playing very, very well, and this gold lead that was about 1k now moving to 5, which is, you know, not really what you want to see if you're a Perilous fan here, but of course nice for those Last Remedy fans to see them kind of stepping it up a little bit, focusing more on the macro as opposed to just sort of raw skill.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of CS leads across the board as well, starting to build up more and more for Last Remedy. We were talking about them earlier and how they were starting to build up a little bit, but now we've got, you know, 70 CS in that mid lane is a big number to be dealing. In fact, 80 CS, I can't even count, but big number to be dealing with there, as well as 20-odd CS down in the bottom lane and 30 towards the top side. It's, you know, it kind of nullifies the leads that some of these carries have had.
Yeah, this is certainly true. I mean, CS is just, I mean, it's just so important because not only is it XP, which is actually sometimes more valuable than gold, but it's also going to be able to sway these gold differences. And yeah, as you mentioned, 5k gold difference, a lot of that is down to CS, even though the kills are 10 to 12, and of course a lot of it in towers as well. I think the real question is if Perilous can kind of get their act into gear and prevent the siege, but this is what Kled is designed for, and here we go.
Charging on in, and we're going to get on to Broxer to begin this fight, but they don't seem to be able to actually catch up to the target. There's the flash Nethergrasp though, and Broxer just jumps up to safety, will get dropped as he lands into the fight, but actually they may have overextended for this. Health bars are low. Chris has to jump over the wall. Here comes Rifty though. He picks up one and he's looking for a second. Sankos has to collateral damage over the wall just to survive, but 3 kills have already gone the way of Last Remedy. They're looking for Prosper as well, as Zoiran gets the biggest shield I've ever seen in my life. Will go down in the end, but it's a triple kill for Rifty, and he's looking to turn it into a quadra. There it is. Last Remedy take this game with both hands, and they barrel down the mid lane.
I think they're going to be able to get at least one tower here. So well played from Last Remedy to win that team fight. I think Perilous did a sort of a good job going very aggressive onto the Elise, but they all grouped up, and I'm not sure if you saw, but Toast managed to land a 4-man max charged Q across the entire Perilous lineup there, which obviously is not what you want to happen to your team as you're trying to make a team fight happen. So, unfortunate positioning from Perilous there to have that happen to you, but as the game sort of does slip away, I'm wondering what's in Perilous' mind right now as they're sort of, thinking, how on earth do we come back from this kind of deficit?
Well, I've got to say, I'm wondering the same thing. How do they come back at this stage? 10,000 gold almost now. And with Baron on the cards officially, it's, it might just be a dicey situation. The next Drake as well will be spawning soon, and it is going to be another Mountain Drake. So should Perilous be able to contest that somehow, maybe that's a potential route in. But, I'm not sure Mountain Drake is really going to be enough. But yeah, here we go. Death Brush, old school Fnatic style.
Oh, I'm hoping, I'm not sure if Last Remedy will fall for it. I think they're just kind of focus on the dragon instead. But this Baron.
Okay, here we go. Well, there's
Rise is going to check it.
I think they have been spotted. There is a Scuttle Crab.
I don't think they have. I think because they jumped over the wall, all 3 of them.
Yeah, well, here we go. They're going to be able to get away with it, trading a Mountain Drake for a Baron and a kill to boot. This is how you capitalize on lack of vision. And Last Remedy, well and truly punished on that one.
They need to get out though, otherwise they will lose this team fight now.
Yeah, they need to escape, but Brad might not be so lucky. He's incredibly low and will be finished off. Rifty looking to punish. It's going to be Chris who gets deleted. Broxer doing so much damage in that burst, and Rifty will actually proc his Guardian's Angel, so they don't even get to trade the kill back. 2 have gone down. Artorias has been caught up, but will be able to joust away Prosper, blocking as much as he can as Sankos goes in. But Toaster, the American sniper from Europe, is going to be able to grab yet another kill. 3 go the way of Last Remedy, and they're looking towards the mid lane towers as well.
As I did mention, Perilous there had to get out of that team fight because once they'd taken the Baron, they were simply too low to fight. Obviously, Last Remedy didn't lose any health on taking the Dragon, so tough for them. They still have the Baron buff, I think, on at least Artorias. I'm not sure if anyone else has it. Does Sankos still have Baron buff? I'm not entirely sure, but at least they can try and use it now. But I think what happened there was that they weren't decisive enough in how they wanted to go back. Instead of trying to back in the bush, they should have just all legged it. Maybe even used Kled ult to escape could have been a viable option. And then just sort of reset, go back and then come back and push the lanes out using your Baron buff effectively. But a little bit of indecisive there from Perilous, and it did cost them.
Certainly did, but they do still have the 2 Baron buffs to work with, and they're going to charge on down this mid lane, so maybe they can find something onto Broxer once more. This seems to be the target each and every time. A nice little ultimate from Toaster, though, is kind of going to halt things there. Nutri happy to tank up a lot of the damage as well, so, it was a valiant effort, but in the end, it's going to be shut down.
Yeah, good effort from Perilous there to try and achieve that. I think Zoran's actually just going to, yep, ulti straight out. A good effort from Perilous to try and force that engage. I think they kind of respected that maybe hard team fighting, you know, under Last Remedies. Right, and Last Remedy's sort of port of call was not the best thing they could have done, but at the same time, didn't lose too much. It's just wasting a little bit of a Baron buff.
I am loving this playstyle from Perilous right now. They're just searching for any little advantage that they can find, and honestly, like,
that's how you
when you compare this to most games when a team is ahead, you just see teams often kind of turtle up and just kind of sit there cowering with their tail between their legs. But Perilous are not going down without a fight right now. They know that they're heavily behind, but they're looking for any kind of advantage that they can eke out. And this is what I absolutely love to see in a team.
I mean, it's so nice to actually see a team, precisely as you say, just, you know, not giving up. And trying to be proactive, which is exactly what's happening here. And you've got to be, otherwise you will just essentially get, or you'll turtle yourself out by letting them dictate the entire pace of the game, essentially giving them all the vision and all of the objectives. So nice of Perilous, you know, to be doing this, but I'm fearing that it's all in vain considering how far behind they are at the moment. But as people, you know, as we sort of know, like, these goal deficits are less and less significant as the game goes on. So hopefully as it pulls out.
In the mid lane, we've got a bit of a trade. I thought there was going to be a bit more of a commitment on that one, to be honest. But in the end, it's just damage going across. But again, we see this situation where the charge comes on through. It lands onto the jungler once more. And Chris, this time, is going to be able to escape from the burst. The kill does go the way of Ezreal, as Nutri is all on his own in this fight, but his team finally arrives. Chris is going to go down, but it's traded straight back for Nutri, as Zoran is all on his own, but he's doing a whole lot of damage and will go down in the end. Brad almost survives, but Perilous, they're doing a fantastic job. Rifty gets a double, but he can't finish anyone else off. He will escape with his life. No, he won't. Everybody flashes, everybody skill shots, and it's going to be the ace going the way of Perilous. They're back in the game, and they're searching for mid lane towers.
There's almost a tear in my eye as to how well Perilous played that. I mean, we were just praising them for being proactive despite being 10k goal behind, and then they forced this team fight down mid lane, you know, with their own inhibitors being at threat. And I mean, ace them. They take 5 for 2 and look like they might even take this inhibitor. I can't imagine what's going to stop them here, to be honest.
Respawns will come on through. Brox and Nutri will get up, but this inhibitor will go down very, very quickly, and I'm not sure that the jungler and support will have much to say about it. The first inhibitor of the game going the way of Perilous, despite the goal deficit, despite the fact that they've been on the back foot for the majority of this game, to be honest. They've managed to find their way back in at 35 minutes, and now it's about what they can do with this pressure that they've found.
Yeah, I absolutely loved as well Chris, or Schoolboy P's, decisiveness in that team fight to flash forward to get the other side of the team fight there on Ezreal to reposition himself for you know, basically being able to better DPS to kind of deny the Rifty flank there. Both top laners as well having TP up, so still a lot of opportunity for both teams to make aggressive plays, but 7k still behind for Perilous, you know, so it's not exactly it's not exactly evened itself out, but with the inhibitor down, they can look to try and pressure the... Oh, actually, speaking of which, mid lane team fight.
Yeah, Nutri's going to be the target to start with. I'm not sure that's the best target to start a fight on, but Toast actually takes a healthy chunk from Chris as well. Zoran has found himself a little bit overextended. He's got a decent shield to work with, but that will melt very quickly. Perilous are doing a good job, but the health bars are low, and here comes Rifty. Double kill for Broxer as Brad is going to drop as well. Toaster finds that kill as Sankuz is going to be chased away, and there's no way to outrun that Echo. Artorias now the last man remaining. He's got a Guardian Angel, but it will be procced, and Toaster is going to look to finish off the kill. Shoots a little bit too early, though, and it will go the way of Broxer, who is racking up the kills in that fight. But it's Last Remedy back in the driver's seat once more. They've managed to kind of regain their composure, and they take control again.
Yeah, this is so to and fro at the moment. I think a lot of that, again, just fell down to Chris having the sort of way too aggressive play with his E over the wall there to get completely chunked out by Toaster. I praised him for doing it last team fight, but this team fight, it went totally wrong, and they even concede the Elder Dragon, of course, which not the sort of thing you want to concede when you're spending a lot of time team fighting, but as it stands, I think Perilous need to spend the next 2.5 minutes just not letting, well, not being team fought, which is, you know, currently their strategy is just sort of team fight, hard engage whenever you can. So I'm kind of hoping they put it on the back foot a little bit.
Well, I mean, the Elder Dragon isn't going to be the end of the world for them right now. There's only one Mountain Drake for the side of Last Remedy, so at least it's not going to be just game-ending on the spot for them.
The burn is still pretty horrific, though, to be honest.
I do agree. Obviously, it is going to be bad news, but here we go. The teleport comes on through, and Nutri going to be on this front line trying to start a fight. But in the end, a good retreat comes out from Perilous Void, and setting up for that Death Brush once more. Guardian Angel.
I'm loving this Death Brush strat.
I know, I absolutely love it. And they have a lot of burst damage as well, and with that charge, this is a fantastic way to set up those long-range engages as well.
Yeah, but you've got to notice that Last Remedy has picked a lot of QSSs, so the problem is that it's hard to lock a target down, especially one who can jump back like Rifty can. But
Risk gets in trouble. He's going to use that chrono break, but there's the charge, and they should be able to lock him up on this one. He has GA, but it will be procced. Someone needs to go back though, because look at the minimap. Here we go, the push up mid lane. They're going to try and trade this for a mid lane inhibitor. The bases immediately start to get channeled, but Nutri is happy to take the tower. I don't know if they're going to be able to get back in time. Home Guards will proc though. I don't think they can get the inhibitor. It's just a Drake. So if something can happen in the next 45 seconds, maybe this is going to be good for Perilous.
Well, this is the time where you have to be decisive and go for that Baron, I think, as Perilous. You know, you have 40 seconds before Rifty respawns without TP, and they are going to know that. They have the they don't have the Kled ult for the engage though, so they might just try and kill it 5v4, which would be very risky. Instead, actually, just opting to push, you know, back off. I guess they've got to respect the Varus Q with the Elder Dragon buff. It's pretty terrifying, especially if you're trying to do Baron. So Perilous making a pick, sacrificing an inhibitor tower for it. Not exactly what you want, but they have wasted a lot of time with the Elder Drake, which is very important. And of course, it has now burnt off.
Yeah. And at 40 minutes as well, this 10,000 gold lead, you know, it starts to become less and less relevant because people are starting to get to 6 items at this stage. So as soon as we get to that threshold at about 45 to 50 minutes, gold lead stops mattering whatsoever, and it's purely down to composition and down to how these teams play their strategies.
That's certainly true. I mean, once everyone's sort of max build, it doesn't matter what the gold difference is at all. All it matters is how many Banner of Commands you can buy, proc on the minion wave, and then sell back to buy your item again. That is the strat for late game, by the way, in case anyone who plays solo queue, that's what you do.
If you've got unlimited money at that stage, then just
well, you know, when it's like a 60-minute game in solo queue, you're like, what can I do? Buy a Banner of Command. We actually see here Last Remedy aggressively starting off this Baron. It's at 7k.
Yeah, it was spotted out though.
They might be able to do it.
The charge will come on through. They're going to start onto Nutri. They need to commit deeper into this fight though. Broxah finishes off the Baron, but at what cost? Artorias getting incredibly low. The rest of his team wasn't really with him on the charge, but he does get toasted before he goes down, which is a huge target. Risk it, immediately burst on down, and he might actually just drop Chrono Break. Already used his Sankas, has to use his QSS. Double kill comes on through though for Zorian. That is going to be a 2-4-1 in favor of Last Remedy. They got the Baron as well. Brad getting his hip-hop pose out. Goes golden, but will go down. Nutri trying to chase them out and will be able to do so. This mid lane inhibitor will drop 3 kills as well. This might actually be game. Sankas is going to get aggressed upon by Rifty. He's trying to do whatever he can. He's trying to finish off that jungler and will be able to get that killing blow. Prosper now, the last man remaining. He's the support as well, but they don't need to be committing to this kill. They need to be getting the objectives. The game could be just about over by now if they just go for the Nexus towers, and it looks like that's finally what they're going to be doing. However, Chris is going to respawn in 10 seconds. Artorias in 5. I don't know if that's going to be enough to hold onto the game, though. The Nexus towers are falling. Last Remedy are looking to turn this into a 2-0, and they will be able to make the magic happen. Last Remedy, for the second time today now, 2-0 up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a very strong performance from Last Remedy over the course of the best of 3, but at the same time, you've got to give credit to Perilous there. I mean, they did a lot of work to try and come back into the game, and there was a moment there where we almost like truly believed they could actually bring it back. In the end, they kind of got out team forward, and Rifty did a fantastic job of flanking as well to sort of exploit the mispositions from Perilous. But Last Remedy's got to take something from this and realize that there's not exactly it's not exactly the dominating performance I imagine they had envisaged from themselves.
Yeah, Absolutely. Well, I've got to say, commendations to Perilous in that second game. Considering how far down they were, it's not often that we see a comeback like that. And honestly, I'm pretty sure Last Remedy were starting to get a little bit nervous in that game, and it definitely looked like Perilous could have come back. But in the end, it does go the way of Last Remedy. So, you know, we were talking before about this team being kind of a UK powerhouse, and they certainly look like it right now. So I'm curious to see how that's going to pan out over the course of the next few weeks, and whether they can start to build a throne for themselves at the top of the scene. However, in the other bracket, M&M are certainly going to be wanting to contest that one. So there's only one way to find out who's going to be the best later on in this season. But before we go, that is going to be the last game of the night. So make sure you check us out on social media, where you can find all of the VODs, you can find all of the highlights from tonight as well on Twitter, and obviously everything on Facebook. But you can get in touch with us and let us know what you thought of the games using that hashtag ESLPrem. Don't forget as well, our finals are going to be at Comic-Con this year. So on the 28th to the 30th of October, you can join us and you can buy your tickets for that at mcmcomiccon.com/London. But I think it's time to take a final look at our brackets after the end of tonight and see where these teams have found themselves, because we had 2 2-0s, TCA versus GLB. Pretty one-sided, to be honest. The default win followed by, you know, a game that really GLB couldn't get their hands around.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's certainly true. I think TCA kind of just rolled away with that win, and well, with the default win, GLB, you know, maybe just not fully sort of in the zone for that game. But because we saw some very rocky things out of Last Remedy against Perilous, and in a sense, you know, TCA is almost a better version of Perilous. They just have slightly better players and slightly better teamwork, and, you know, all of sort of everything sort of like slightly buffed. I think genuinely the best of 3 coming up, which obviously not tonight, but the best of 3 coming up between TCA and Last Remedy could be, you know, truly a phenomenal series.
Yeah, absolutely, and that will be next week, as well as the game between Perilous and GLB, and they will be playing for tournament life. So it is all on the line for those two teams, and I've got to say, looking at the games today, maybe Perilous are, I'd say, favourites for that one, but we'll have to find out. And let's take a quick look at Group B as well, because these are going to be happening in a couple of weeks' time. M&M versus Batmani Begins, and Sensei versus XL. We'll not go into too much detail on those ones, as we mentioned them earlier, but they will be... I was going to try and say the date, but I actually don't know what the date is. I think it's like the 17th or something, or on that week anyway. But regardless, that will be in the future. So if you're a fan of one of them teams, make sure to keep tuning in. But I think that's all we've got for you guys tonight. So thank you very much for tuning in. I have been Munchables. This has been Frozen Dawn. Thank you very much for joining me on the casting desk.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Very short notice as well. I've got to give a shout out as well to our observer tonight. It has been Trid. You can find him on Twitter at CasterTrid. He's done an absolutely phenomenal job. So big up to Trid over there. A little round of applause. But we are going to call it a night. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you guys next week.